Welcome to Legal Lines. My name is Tom O'Shea, the host of this program that is brought to you by the York County Bar Foundation. My guest today is President Judge Joseph Adams, the President Judge of the Court of Common Pleas of York County, and we will be talking about the Court of Common Pleas of York County. So welcome, Judge Adams.
Thanks, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here.
And my very first question is, what is the President Judge? What is the role of the President Judge?
The President Judge is the executive or administrative head of the judicial district. York County is the 19th judicial district in Pennsylvania. And as President Judge, it's my responsibility to assign the different judges to the different divisions within the court, to budget, to address personnel issues, to also be involved in catastrophe planning as well. So there's a lot of administrative functions that the President Judge does in addition to serving as a judge.
So you also hear cases?
Yes.
While you're doing the administrative work. How many judges are there in the Court of Common Pleas of York County?
We are assigned 15 judges. Unfortunately, we only have 12 serving right now. There are two vacancies, Judge Thompson and Judge Kelly, both left last year, and then Judge Sherbilcock is currently deployed overseas, and so we will not have his services for the better part of this year.
So based upon what, the population of the county, it's decided how many judges there should be in each county?
There is no formula for it. The legislature determines ultimately how many judges are assigned to each district, and York has been assigned 15.
So we're supposed to have 15. So basically, you do the administrative work for what should be 15 judges.
Yes. So it's my responsibility to, in essence, manage the caseload for 15 judges amongst 12 people.
Okay. So some people are getting more than they want.
Yes.
All right. How is the selection made for President Judge?
It all depends upon the size of the size of the judicial district. Under the Pennsylvania law, if there are 8 or more judges, then it's a vote amongst the judges. So whoever receives the most votes would then would serve as President Judge for 5 years. If there are 7 or less judges in a particular district, then it is the most senior judge who serves as the President Judge, and his term would remain. He would be the President Judge for as long as he is a judge, unless he were to step down or she were to step down.
Okay, so in a county the size of York, it's an election, and the election is just among the judges.
Just among the judges, yeah.
So the public has no voice in who's the President Judge. They elect the judges, but the judges then decide who is the President Judge.
That's correct. And if we were involved in a situation where a judge received the same number of votes as another judge, then that would be decided by the Supreme Court. And if there were 7 or less judges and 2 judges had the same years of seniority, then they cast lots or flip a coin and decide who's the most senior.
Okay. But so at any rate, that speaks highly of you that you were selected by the other judges to serve in this capacity. And it is a limited term, though.
That's correct. It's a 5-year term, and you cannot succeed yourself, so it's 5 years and then you're done.
Okay, and you followed Judge Lineby, I believe.
That's correct.
And he was the President Judge up until December of 2015?
Yes.
And you just started in January of 2016?
That's correct.
And you've been a judge for how long?
I've just started my second 10-year term.
Okay. And so if part of your job is assigning the caseload to all of the judges, what different types of cases are there?
We have 4 sections within our judicial division. We have a family court division, we have a criminal division, a civil division, and an orphans court division.
Okay. Now, I think it's pretty clear, but let's just go over the types of cases that would exist in each. I think the one that the public might not be as familiar with is the orphans court.
Sure.
What is the orphans court?
Orphans court deals with wills and estates. It also deals with adoptions as well. We have currently one judge, Judge Kennedy, who's assigned to orphans court matters.
Okay, so that would be adoptions would be part of orphans court. That I think to most people would make sense.
Yes.
But anything dealing with estates,
estate planning issues,
administration of wills, a will contest.
That's correct.
That would be to the orphans court judge.
That's correct.
Okay. Now, the criminal division seems clear enough. That would be any type of criminal case?
Anything from homicide down to traffic citations.
Okay. Now, I've already had as a guest one of the district judges who explained to us that traffic citations and minor offenses are heard at district judge level, but magisterial court. But if anybody takes an appeal from that, where does it go?
That would go to the Court of Common Pleas.
So I assume the court gets a number of those every year.
That's correct. So we serve as original jurisdiction for some matters, and we are considered appellate jurisdiction for other matters.
Okay, and these matters would typically, the prosecuting side would be the district attorney's office.
That's correct.
And then we talked about family matters. Now, what would that involve?
That could be anything from custody, divorce, support, protection from abuse, juvenile delinquency, juvenile dependency issues. So there's a lot of different issues.
Can you describe the difference between dependency and delinquency?
Sure. Juvenile delinquency is where a child were to commit a crime. They would be considered delinquent. Dependency is where there's not, in most cases, where there's not proper parental control for a child. Those are considered dependency issues.
So if a child was being neglected or abused by the parents or the guardians, that would be a dependency
That's correct, yes.
case. And a delinquency case is basically a case where the minor is committing some type of crime.
That's correct. So it's very similar to criminal cases, except the judge is the jury as well in juvenile matters.
Okay, so there's no right to a jury trial for a juvenile, and there's no finding of guilt.
That's correct. You're adjudicated delinquent, or you're found to have committed the delinquent act.
Okay, and then there's the civil cases. So what could that be?
Slip and fall, contract disputes.
Slip and fall would be basically a personal
like
injury.
a personal injury case, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So anything along those lines, personal injury cases, contract disputes, things along those lines.
Okay. So now, are different judges assigned to one of these four areas, family, civil, criminal, or orphans?
Yes. Yeah, and that's my responsibility as president judge, is to do those assignments.
Okay. And there's certain areas that more judges want to work in than others.
Yeah, in most cases, yes.
Okay, but you get to decide who's in which area.
That's right.
And if somebody is assigned to a certain area, is it for a certain period of time?
Yeah, we serve each year, so it'll be for that year, and then we decide, usually mid-July, we'll sit down and look at the assignments for the next year. But they generally, each judicial year starts the first Monday of January.
Okay, now you mentioned that Judge Kennedy is the Orphans Court judge. Is it there just one judge who handles Orphans Court matters?
Yes.
Is that sufficient?
Yeah, at this point that's sufficient. He also does a lot of the treatment courts as well.
Okay. Now, treatment courts, we did some shows on that. Can you just briefly tell us what the treatment courts are?
Sure. There's a DUI court, there's mental health court, there's veterans court, and they're all, in essence, an alternative to the criminal system in the sense that they're diversionary. You don't go through the criminal process. If you complete them, in many cases, your records expunged, for instance, like ARD. But there are all types of diversionary programs that are designed really to get people help that they need.
Okay. So, for example, as I understand it, if somebody has committed a crime, basically to support their drug addiction, they might qualify for treatment court, where the goal is, instead of punishing them for committing the crime, treating them for the underlying cause that caused them to commit the crime.
That's correct, yeah.
And are there certain judges who handle each of the different treatment courts?
There are. I know Judge Kennedy right now does the majority of the adult treatment courts. We do have juvenile treatment courts as well. Same thing, mental health. We have a jump court. We have a DUI, what we call fast track court as well. So there, in both systems, we have treatment courts.
Okay. We did a few programs on the various treatment courts in legal lines, and I understand York County is one of the leading counties, one of the first counties in the state to put these programs in place, and it's served as a model for other counties.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Now, you mentioned already that there are 3 vacancies right now in the court, and I want to stress that one of them is Judge Trebilcock, who he's a colonel, I believe, in the United States Army Reserves, and he got called to active duty, and I believe right now he's in Afghanistan.
Yes, I know he's overseas.
So his isn't really a vacancy, but nevertheless, for approximately 1 year, he's not handling cases here. Now he, as the colonel in the United States Army, was handling the Veterans Court. Who's handling that now?
Judge Kennedy.
Okay, so Judge Kennedy's handling that, and he's had a lot of experience with the other treatment courts as well.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. What is happening with the court, being that there are right now 3 vacancies?
Sure. We are getting things done. It's just taking us longer to get them done. The caseload hasn't changed, so we still have the same number of cases coming in. So it's just taking us a little longer to dispose of those cases, and unfortunately, the longer that these vacancies go unfilled, in essence, it becomes a snowball and becomes longer and longer and longer for us to get those cases resolved.
Now, I know that there's a mandatory retirement age for judges. What is that?
It's 70 years of age right now, but it is on the ballot. We're trying. The legislature has passed in 2 consecutive sessions a bill which would allow it to go to 75 instead of 70.
Okay, where a judge has to retire, I believe, at the end of the year where they turn 70?
That's correct.
So if that occurs and a judge is elected to a 10-year term and a judge turns 70 8 years in, even though there might not be another election for another year, he has to retire.
That's correct.
And leaving a vacant spot on the court. And I believe, was that Judge Thompson who retired this?
And Judge Kelly. Yeah.
And they both. Judge Kelly wasn't old enough to retire. He just decided to go into private practice again.
That's right. Yes.
Okay, so that left a vacancy, and Judge Thompson's left a vacancy. Do we have visiting judges who come in to assist?
We do. When we are down, we can request from the Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Courts, commonly referred to as AOPC, we can ask for assistance, and we're allowed to have a senior judge come and assist us. Usually each judge is limited to 10 business days within that district, and we are fortunate now to have a few senior judges coming in to assist us.
10 business days per month or?
Per month, per judge. And each judge has different limitations on how long they can serve. But in essence, usually it's roughly 10 days comes out
now,
to.
Can you tell us what a senior judge is? How do you get that status?
A senior judge is in essence a retired judge who has elected to stay on and serve as a senior judge. So they are, in many cases, judges who have hit seniority and in essence have, in most cases, have aged out.
So it would typically be a judge who has reached the age of 70, was forced to retire, but still wants to work.
In many cases it is.
And they're allowed to work. Okay, now a senior judge could be assigned to a different county where the judge typically lived or handled cases before.
That's right. For instance, we have Judge Clark from Dauphin County assisting us. Judge Bingham from Adams County is assisting us as well.
So that's helping to fill in the fact that we're down 3 judges right now.
Yeah, and unfortunately these vacancies will be about 2 years because judges...
I'm going to get to that when we come back for the second segment. We have to take a break right now. This is Legal Lines. Thank you. Welcome back to Legal Lines. Our show today has to do with the Court of Common Pleas of York County, and my guest is President Judge Joseph Adams, the President Judge of the Court of Common Pleas of York County. And we were just talking before we left for the break about the role of a senior judge and how someone becomes a senior judge. Can you go over that again and elaborate?
Usually most of the senior judges are retired judges, and they are allowed to serve usually about 10 business days a month is usually what it runs out to be. And they could serve within their judicial district where they presided, or they could be asked to serve in another district. And like I mentioned to you earlier, we do have 2 judges right now, Judge Bingham from Adams County, who's assisting us, and Judge Clark from Dauphin County as well.
Okay, and the reason we need their assistance, is because right now there are 3 vacancies in the court. 2 are permanent.
Yeah.
And Judge Kelly and Judge Thompson both retired from their judicial roles within the last year. And Judge Trebilcock, he is a colonel in the United States Army Reserves, and he's been called to active duty in Afghanistan, but he will be back in about a year.
Yes, he should be back by the end of this year.
Okay. So that leaves the court down 3 judges out of 15.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do the math right, that's roughly, what, one-fifth,
Yeah.
20% vacancy. And the senior judges who come in are trying to help ease the burden.
Yes.
And by taking some cases.
Yeah.
Let's, if we can go over some general idea what volume of cases the
Sure.
courthouse has to deal with.
Right now, in terms of criminal cases, we are dealing with about 8,500 new criminal complaints that are filed every year. In family law, we have roughly 750 new custody actions filed. We have 7,000 support matters, either new cases or requests for modification. We have around 750 protection from abuse filings that are done each year as well. So the number of cases, unfortunately, hasn't changed very much, just the number of judges that are available to address those cases.
Is there an area of law that requires more court time or more judges to work in that area than others?
Yeah, we have time constraints in juvenile delinquency and dependency matters, and protection from abuse matters have to be addressed immediately, given the nature and the circumstances of protection from abuse cases. So they receive the priority, and unfortunately, civil cases don't have those same time constraints. So that's an area where we haven't focused as much resources to, because we just don't have the manpower to do it.
By time constraints, you're saying that basically either the legislature or the Supreme Court has mandated that someone have a hearing within so much time.
That's correct. For instance, in a protection from abuse case, we have to have a hearing within 10 days from the filing. In a delinquency case, if a juvenile is being detained, we have to have a hearing within 10 days. And in many cases, that's a trial. I mean, we're having a full trial within 10 days. If the juvenile is found to have committed the delinquent act and remains detained, he has to be, in essence, sentenced, or his case has to be disposed of within 20 days from that date. Likewise, with dependency matters, there are time limitations on all of those. Custody actions, same thing. We have time limitations on how quick we must have them resolved.
Okay, so if there's a breakdown, I know we talked that there's one judge who's handling the orphans court, which is basically estate matters. Mm-hmm. But how many judges are in the criminal division?
There are 4 criminal judges right now. Judge Bortner, Judge Wren, Judge Cook, and Judge Ness are the 4 judges assigned to the criminal division.
Now that's for 8,500.
That's 8,500 cases.
Now, many of them will never go to trial because there'll be plea bargains and other arrangements. But that's still a very high volume.
Yeah, a judge has to address that. I mean, if there's a plea, in most cases there are, the judge still has to take the plea, has to sentence. If there are probation violations or parole violations or suppression motions, all that has to be addressed amongst the 4 judges.
So ideally, with 3 judges missing, at least one other judge would have been assigned to the criminal division. Yeah,
I think at a minimum we really should have 5 judges in the criminal court.
And what about the family division?
There's 5.5, and I say half because I'm still in the family division, but half of my time is devoted to president-judge responsibilities. So the other judges that are in the family division are Judge Marcisa Strong, Judge Platts, Judge Menges, Judge Flannelly, and Judge Snyder.
Okay, so that sounds like it has the highest number of judges involved.
Yeah, because as I mentioned, we do support custody, divorce, dependency, delinquency, and most of the time constraints are within those types of matters.
Okay. And then the civil division?
We have one judge, Judge Linebaugh.
Judge Linebaugh. So if we were to look at the court docket with the number of cases that actually go to trial, it seems like the criminal cases would far outweigh the civil cases.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Okay, and civil cases, most of them settle by some type of agreement.
That's typically the case,
Okay,
yes.
but of course, you never know which ones will.
Yeah, unfortunately, it usually doesn't settle until trial's imminent.
And what people may not realize is that when cases get assigned to the court, the judge just doesn't show up and say, let's start the trial.
Yeah.
There are a number of pretrial proceedings that the judge might have to preside over.
Yeah, there's a lot of legwork that goes into each trial, a lot of chambers time that you need to prep the case and get it ready to go.
Okay. And with respect to the courthouse itself, I know that the York County Judicial Center, I believe it's now approximately 12 years old that the building's been in place?
2003.
Okay, so we're...
Yeah, 2003.
2003, so we're approaching 13 years now. And when there was originally, 12 courtrooms?
Yes, there were 6 on the 6th floor and 6 on the 7th floor. We had some hearing rooms, too, that were located on the 4th floor.
Okay. And now the 5th floor, which was vacant and left vacant by design so that it could be used for future expansion. I understand about a year ago that some courtrooms have been put on the 5th floor.
Yeah, that's correct.
And can you tell us how they're different than the other courtrooms?
Yeah, we found that more and more cases do not need a jury. So in these courtrooms, in essence, they're more like hearing rooms. So there is no jury box. So we were able to stick more hearing rooms on the floor than if they were just courtrooms with a jury.
When it just comes to floor space, a jury box is going to take up a great deal of room, plus arrangements for the jurors to meet in a separate room to deliberate.
That's correct. So there's a deliberation room, a jury box.
So the 5th floor courtrooms are designed for non-jury proceedings.
That's correct.
And tell us what types of areas would typically have non-jury proceedings.
Most family law cases do, as I mentioned earlier, juvenile delinquency, juvenile dependency, also do not require a jury. Orphans court, likewise, would not require a jury. In criminal cases, ultimately when you go to trial, you'll need the jury box and a deliberation room. But for pretrial matters, suppression motions, you could use a hearing room as well.
Now, there are certain times of the year, each month practically for a couple of weeks, where jurors are called in for jury duty?
Yes.
And during a jury trial term, the idea is to get as many cases heard as possible. So that's when all of the courtrooms are being used for jury trials.
Yes, we're doing both criminal and civil cases during our jury weeks.
So they would, if you get called to jury duty, you could be called for either civil or criminal case.
That's right.
And as a result of that, there could be several cases going on, and all the jury courtrooms are taken.
Yes. Yeah.
So if somebody has to see a family law judge for a family law matter where there is not a jury, or an orphans court matter where there is not a jury, then there would be the smaller courtrooms that are now on the 5th floor would be sufficient.
Yeah, so we could move around if need be.
Okay. And as I understand it, when at one time each judge sort of had his or her own courtroom?
Yes and no. It usually turns out to be that way, but technically we don't have
yes and no, but years ago, it used to pretty much be that each judge was in the old courthouse.
Yes, that's correct. In the old courthouse, there was definitely the judge's courtroom. That was their courtroom.
All right, but right now, the courtrooms are used more for what the proceeding is, as opposed to one judge always being in the same courtroom.
Yeah, I mean, in essence, I'm usually in the same courtroom, but there are times where we do need to switch, and there are days where I'll be in a different courtroom.
All right. And speaking of the courtrooms, I understand that there's some new technology being put into the courtrooms.
Yeah, each of the courtrooms is receiving an update in terms of the technology, new cameras. The technology was from the early 2000s, and for instance, we had VCRs and things like that, which we don't need now. So each courtroom is in the process of being updated. We're doing them one at a time. So far, we have 2 of the courtrooms that have been redone, and each of the courtrooms will ultimately be finished by sometime late spring.
And I know, as president judge, you got the courtroom with the technology first?
I was the guinea pig, just to see how things would work and what was needed and things we could exclude, and to see how fast and how long it was taking, so we could plan out for the rest of the year how long it was
Not only were you the guinea pig, but you know how to use all this technology.
I am somewhat
tech savvy.
Yeah, I would say I'm a tech savvy.
Okay,
yes,
and some of the other judges will be spending a lot of time learning this?
I don't think so. Our old system was very similar in terms of user interface, so it's not that much of a leap in terms of our involvement. It really is beneficial to the attorneys, who I would like to see more and more use the technology. We are going to a paperless system eventually, and the way the system is now being set up, it lends itself very well to a paperless system. We could do things. We have terminals on each of the counsel table. We have a terminal in front of the witness. We have a screen where a jury could see it as well. We have a screen for the judge to view it as well. So each courtroom is set up very nicely.
When you're talking about screens, typically in a case there might be, let's say we're just dealing with a breach of contract case. Instead of the attorneys each holding a paper copy of the contract and introducing it into evidence and for the judge to see and ultimately the jurors to look at parts of it, now how would it work?
It could be very simple. An attorney using a laptop or an iPad can call up an exhibit, and then the judge has the control within the courtroom to show who sees it. For instance, so if we're ruling on something, I could have it where just myself and the attorneys are looking at it together, and then when we're ready, we can then publish that to the jury and put it up on the screen, or publish it to the witness so they can see it as well.
How about proceedings where someone's not available? Can they be Skyped in, or what's that called?
Yeah, we have the ability to do that. We do that a lot with prisoners. Support contempts is an area that I do, and so we will have, in essence, a Skype ability to meet with somebody through prison.
Instead of somebody, like you said, somebody from the prison, instead of them being transported to the courthouse at large expense, now they can just be in a room at the prison and appear on the screen. Now, I realize this wouldn't be for a jury trial or something like this, but for a pretrial matter or something.
Yeah, it is very beneficial.
And I'm going to cut you off. It's beneficial as your last words, because we're running out of time. So thank you, Judge Adams, for being our guest. This is Legal Lines. My name is Tom O'Shea, and this show is brought to you by the York County Bar Foundation.